Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Adoptees podcast. And have we got a treat for you today? I say that a lot, but I'm certain that this lady is going to be brilliant. So Allison is an adoptee. She's an adoptive mum, and she's also a children's book author. And we had a great conversation a few weeks ago, and this one's going to be even better. So welcome to the show, Allison.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and it's Allison Olson, so I didn't say your second name.
Oh, okay.
So this book that you've written, there'll be links in the show notes, everybody. I've seen like a PDF of it, and it's beautifully illustrated. The illustrator, her brother is adopted, is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
So it's written by an adoptee and adoptive mum, and it's illustrated by the sister of an adoptee. It's brilliant. It's like this is the real deal. Now, one of the key themes in the book is self-worth. Why did you pick that as the topic, Allison? Key topic.
Sure. And I know we're going to get into my thoughts around self-worth here in a bit, but I think that there were some concerning trends in the market, or just around adoptees, right? So the study we're all really familiar with from 2013 that was published in Pediatrics magazine, where adoptees were found to be 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than a non-adoptee. That, to me, that's a concerning stat. And so going from being an adoptee myself to then becoming an adoptive parent, I was preparing for the adoption and arrival of our daughter. And I did what most people do. I went out and bought all of the highly recommended children's adoption books, right, to help educate her on adoption. And I was a little surprised with what the content had been. So I am born in 1979, and I'm from a domestic infant adoption. The adoption was finalized in 1980. So you can imagine 40-year age gap there, that the books are quite different. But they've changed in an interesting way to me. Where I was getting the tone from several of these books on the market, that the adoptee should feel lucky to have these adoptive parents. So that the typical theme of saviorism, and it might be smaller in some books and it might be bigger in some books, and I might be more sensitive as an adoptee reading these. But it was concerning to me. So, when you think of self-worth, that takes years to build, right? It takes years to build yourself. It takes a lot of little, in my opinion, a lot of little small things to get there. And I didn't, not that I felt that these books were doing any harm, but they certainly weren't helping. Right. So the feeling of lucky, or to tell a child they're lucky, or that, you needed something, we were there to provide it. Right. So that kind of a tone, that gives the impression to a young child that they need to feel grateful for even their presence and existence. And that was the narrative and tone I just wanted to change in children's literature. So there was another book out there in the market that focused more around the love that surrounds this child. And now seeing, 2 of the 3 sides of the adoption triad, I was able to see more, how much her birth mom and even extended birth family loved her. And I knew all the years that we put into home studies and, all the marketing material and waiting and wanting for her to join our family. And I just felt like all of that was missing in children's literature. So that's what I wanted to focus on. And I wanted to show that love from both of those sides so that they can know they were loved and wanted, which is, again, a theme I want to put out there more for adoptees, before they were born. And I know this is not representative of all adoptions. There's no one book that could be, but for adoptions that are, especially in this case, open adoptions that are, this is reflective of the story, of people's individual stories, I wanted to have a book out there to represent that.
Yeah. Can I take you back a bit to a personal
Sure.
question on that? Yeah.
Sure.
Were you told that you should feel lucky?
I was not. So I think that I don't know if that had changed over the years. But when I was born, when my parents were waiting and went to these adoption agencies, they were told 5 to 7 years. And that was like the fastest adoption agency you could find. It was a 5 to 7 year wait to adopt a child. So I think that the narrative has changed a bit over time. It was not ideal back then because it was a little bit more hush hush. There was more shame. If you talk to different birth moms, they will tell you this, because I'm part of a closed adoption, so I was not allowed to know anything. So I think that part has improved as far as the open adoption now and having relationships and getting to know birth family. But I'm not sure where along the lines the narrative changed to be this lucky element.
Okay. Because I was never told that I should feel lucky either.
Yeah.
So I was told, and we didn't talk a lot about me. So I'm like 12 years older than you. I was born in 1967. We didn't talk about, growing up, we didn't talk about it a lot at all. But occasionally they would say, I think they would say, that, we chose you. They never said you should feel lucky.
Yeah.
So what I see on social media is adoptees being angry about being told that they should feel lucky, right?
That's correct.
So if I just distill that down, they are angry about other people's opinions.
I think it's deeper than that, because I think it's a theme. So if you are told for your childhood growing up, if the theme in different stories that are told, whether it's books, whether it's personal stories from the parents, if you are made to feel like you should feel grateful to be in someone's house or to still be alive, right? So your whole existence is to feel grateful. It does tend to, there are a lot of these adoptee forums that I'm in where they can go many different ways, but they can either be, as you were saying, angry, or they can turn out to be over the top people pleasers that have to figure out, find their own self-worth over time, because they are giving of themselves so much to other people and trying to please, because again, they should be grateful for their existence. So it's trying to, again, I can't do everything. Again, I know we talked about this before the podcast started. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I'm just an adoptee who cares about my community. And I was just shocked that there were several books on the market that were leaning more towards that. And I knew several adoptees that struggled with that personally.
Okay.
And I just wanted there to be another option on the market.
I just want to go back to it one more time, then we'll move on to self-worth. Because one of the scary things, right, that I see in adoptees, with this, that adoptees are angry about other people's opinions, that they're angry about being told that they should be lucky. And so the logic on that, my little logical brain on that, bearing in mind I've never felt that way. Yeah. My concern is that if they're waiting for other people's opinions of them to change, they're going to be waiting an awful long time.
I see that. Okay. I will dissect that from my opinion a little bit differently.
Brilliant.
Yes. So that is a fine thing to say as an adult, right? So like if you said, hey, Allison, I think your new hairstyle is a little crazy. I'd be like, okay, probably, whatever. That's Simon's opinion. But it's
it looks fine to me, by the way. I'll just inject a bit of humor into the.
There you go. Everyone's just listening. They don't even know. But that is different when you're told something as an adult than something that is around your whole presence and existence as a child. Right. So if you think about, some people can, grow up and feel very, if their parents get divorced, feel very damaged by that and feel like they were left or like different things like that. Right. And it can stay with them forever. Other kids of divorce can feel complete and whole. I think it is the messages and the spoken and unspoken that has a theme, and I think that if you grow up feeling like I only exist because someone else saved me, so the lucky child theme goes hand in hand with the saviorism. And so I think with that is where the frustration comes in. And I know a lot of adoptees that have had to do a lot of work on themselves to build that self-worth that wasn't there because they felt their whole purpose of self wouldn't have existed if somebody else didn't come in and save them. So it's very common in international adoptions. I'll even talk to some prospective adoptive parents, because anytime they find out you're an adoptive parent, they say, hey, I'm thinking about adopting. And oftentimes one of the first statements is, because I really want to, save a child that could have had. Here's the situation in our adoption for our daughter. And when I say our, I actually mean the collective our. So my husband and I and our biological daughter and her birth family. That's the our that I'm talking about, the OUR. She would have been extremely loved if her birth mom had decided to parent. She would have been extremely loved if any of the other hundreds of hopeful adoptive parents had been selected, right? So we did not save her from anything. If there's lucky in this situation at all, it's us. Like, we are lucky and thankful that we were selected and that we got the opportunity and privilege to get to raise and love and support her. But that is not the narrative that's always said.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's the main distinction there.
Right. Thank you for explaining that. I think you did it absolutely with great beauty, logic, empathy, and feeling really sensitively, because I don't like. I've never felt that. I've never felt that. I don't remember being told I should feel lucky. I don't remember being angry about being told I should feel lucky. I've never really explored it. It's so alien to me. I really don't know what I'm doing. I do have a little bit more opinion on self-worth.
Yeah.
So we're going to explore that. So what does self-worth mean to you, Allison?
Well, can I start with the definition based on Google? Let me start with that, and then I'll tell you what my definition is.
If you must, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'll tell you theirs, and then I'll tell you mine. So there were two different definitions that I Googled that were interesting in the way they framed it. So the most standard one everyone would think of would be the Webster Dictionary. And it said it's a sense of one's own value as a human being. And then there was a study that was done by the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, that went into a little bit more depth. And they say self-worth is the internal sense of being good enough and worthy of love and belonging from others. And then they kind of go on to elaborate, which gets into what we'll be discussing here in just a moment. But self-worth is often confused with self-esteem, which relies on external factors such as successes and achievements to define worth, and can often be inconsistent, leading to someone's struggle with feeling worthy. So now, with all of that, my personal thought on self-worth is that it is how we value ourselves in this world, how we feel about ourselves, and how we are able to love and let love in. And it is such a strong foundation that anything else that happens, right? So we, like I've had a couple, like we lost a cat a couple weeks ago, you know, you just think about all the extremes, right? You lose a job or you fail at something, that all of those are surface level, but don't come into changing how you feel deep down about yourself and the value you bring to this world. That's my thought. I'm curious to hear yours.
Well, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to break it down in perhaps a right brain, or is it left brain logical blokey kind of way. Bloke means man, right? It's English slang. I don't know whether you use the word bloke in the States, right? Yeah, I don't want to. So yeah, self is who we are, and worth is yeah. Did you notice I said who we are, not who I am, right? So okay. who we are, self is who we are, and worth. You're going to like this one, hopefully. Our infinite value.
I like that. I do like that.
So for me, in a metaphor, the one that I would go on about is the diamond, right? The diamond is who we are, and a diamond has a finite value. I'm holding up a glass diamond, which is clearly worth a lot less than a diamond, right? A diamond has a glass diamond has a finite value. A diamond has a finite value, a lot higher. But who we are, it has infinite value, and that's that's my take on self and worth.
I like that. I like that.
And it kind of, yeah, the self, who we are, I would step back down to, right, you know, self. So you could say identity, like identity, and people would talk about their name as their identity. It says on the identity card, it says your name. Mm-hmm. Well, I've had two names, so I can't actually be either.
Yeah.
You've probably had two names.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can, and that was the funny thing that occurred to me when I got my original birth certificate or whatever it was. It got a different name, and I thought, I've had two names. And a bit later on, if I've had two names, I can't be either. So my name isn't my identity, which is a bit of a weird one. So
it's a very good clarification, wow, especially for adoptees, because we often have two names.
We have two names, so we can't be either.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not our name. So we're not our. So anything that changes isn't who we are. The essence of who we are never changes.
Yep.
So our it's not what happened to us. It's not our story about what happened to us. It's not our feelings. It's not our thoughts. All these things change. And underneath is underneath all that is the self, is the essence that we are.
And I'm gonna kind of tap into that a little bit more,
Go for it.
because I do think some of those elements, though, that you mentioned can have an impact on our self-worth. So like a name, right? So I'll go with an extreme, right? Paris Hilton, right? Having Hilton on the back of your name is going to have a little bit of an impact when you are building your self-worth throughout your life. That might have an impact. So all of these things, stories, how you're raised, but it doesn't define you, and it shouldn't define your inside value, but all of these things can have an impact. So when you say, that we have two names, and so neither of the names define us, but they might have helped shape us, right? And the fact that we've had two different names, I mean, it could, everyone's different. I'm just saying.
It depends what you mean by us. So are we okay just to have a debate on this?
Of course, right? Of course. Okay. I love debates.
It depends what you mean by us. Okay, so let me go. So, and these things are multi-layered. Mm-hmm. It's multi-layered. So am I Simon Ben? Yes, I am. That's my name. Okay. Am I Simon Ben? Is that the essence of who I am? No. Am I? No, it's not my essence, right? Yes. Paris Hilton, Paris Hilton's, Paris Hilton's time is worth more than mine to the outside world. Her extrinsic value is more. Her wealth is more by quite a way, right? Yeah. Her bank balance is more. What you could ask me to, I will retweet our episode, right, when we do the podcast, and I'll put it on Facebook and all that.
See if Paris will listen.
Sorry, I don't know. I'm not really bothered. So and I'm not going to charge for that, right? Somebody asked me yesterday, do you charge for your podcast? No. You said monetize it. I said, that's a different thing. So if Gucci will pay Paris Hilton £50,000 to retweet, right? Mm-hmm. So she has the value of her actions is higher because she has
her actions. Yeah.
Her extrinsic value, her bank balance is higher by quite a way. Yeah. She's going to inherit more by quite a way. Her extrinsic value is different, but our intrinsic value mm-hmm. is all the same, and it is all infinite. So that's why I said self, and then I said, self. So I'm thinking me. I'm thinking, but when I was using my definition, I said self, who we are, mm-hmm. because I don't just see myself as have me, my essence, myself, as having infinite value. I see everybody as having infinite value, including Vladimir Putin, Adolf Hitler, Paris Hilton, everybody. I don't like them, but I don't. It's not about what. It's not about our names. It's not about what we do. It's not about our feelings. It's not about what's going on in our brains. However mad that is for Vladimir Putin, it is clearly off its rocker. But the value is deep. You use the word deep. Yeah, I'm going deep.
Yeah,
I'm going deep.
So I think actually we are on the same page with all of that. So I agree with all of that. Let me go a little deeper into the name piece. So I am from a small town. So my last name is not Hilton, but in my small town, my dad was a pillar of the community, right? So growing up, because you had asked me to think about my self-worth journey, right? Yeah. And so in that, I was thinking about it, and that's the interesting part for me. I cannot point to a single individual time, right? So all of these little things helped me to, and continue to, as you said, infinite, to build my self-worth. But as childhood does help to set the foundation, right? So if people are set off on a bit of a rocky start, they have a little bit more to rebuild than some of the rest of us. But when I think about my own, again, last name, not Hilton, I did not feel necessarily my own self-worth until I left my home and went out of state to college. Because I did not feel like anything I had worked towards, whether it was friendships or different things I had earned, were actually due to me, because it might actually just be my name. And so that's where I was coming from with the name, not the value, the monetary value that someone's name brings in, but more of, until you become your full self and have a good foundation for self-worth that, again, as you mentioned, continues to grow. It's tough, but all of those elements are helping to build it. So again, from my standpoint, it was actually getting out from under a name, to find. So I moved out of state where nobody knew me. Nobody knew anything about my background, my family, anything where I grew up. And I was able to truly become myself. And the funny part about that is, and then I would go back to my hometown. Everyone sees me like, oh, she's just the same. But my inside had changed so much for my self-worth.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I had a similar thing about,
Cool.
Yeah, completely different experience, different timings on it. But actually, yeah, and to do with my dad too, as in, so this friend of mine, I'm sure, doesn't listen to the show. So he got a job through his dad, but he worked for his dad's best friend, or one of his dad's best friends. That's how he got a job. And I've been told that categorically, not by him, but by somebody else. And yeah, when I worked with my dad, for my dad, whatever, it doesn't really, people get hung up on the vocabulary of it. But when he said something to me about it being the easy thing, me working for my dad, I was incensed, because my dad gave me a lot at various times. He gave me a big hard time at work. It wasn't easy. And I was, yeah, in his shadow. So I could say now, I could say then, I'd be with you in terms of the self-worth being built. But if I would go back to my own understanding now, after I've done all my, well, not all my healing, not all my, I'm still, identity is my number one thing, right? So that's what I am fascinated by and curious by, and that's what I continue to be so. So what I mean is listening to an hour and a half a day of audios and podcasts about identity, about self. And my view has changed completely from, self-worth being built to self-worth being innate.
Interesting.
So if you were to look at your kids' self-worth, then they don't have to do anything, do they? Your kids don't have to do anything. for you to love them more, for you to see their for their value to increase. They already have infinite value.
Well, here's a question then. What if someone grows up with a very traumatic experience, right?
Well,
like neglect or abuse, etc. And so that's where I just feel like we might be born with some, but I feel like we do have to do work to see it. I mean, maybe that's more of it. Maybe it's just more of to see it and recognize it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's my feeling too.
Okay.
So the one I usually use with this is I look at it in terms of resilience, right? So most people think that resilience is strengthened. It's like a muscle. You go to the gym and it's strengthened. You go through tough times, and you know what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Yeah, but that's the kind of common thing.
You hear it a lot. Yes.
You hear it a lot. And my view on resilience is that it's revealed. So
I like that.
You don't realize how strong you are, then you go through some SH1T and you get through it. Most of the time because you've got no option, but you get through it and you see the strength that you always have. And so, and before I move on from that matters, because if you think that you need to go to the gym, you need to go through hard times to be resilient, then you're saying that you're delaying it. You're looking outside yourself, and you're seeing yourself as not you. Sorry, we. If we do this, we are seeing ourselves as fragile. I'm fragile. If only I could do this, I would be resilient. If only I would do this, I'd be resilient. If only I could learn to cope with my dad bullying me at work. He doesn't. Unfortunately, he died like 5 years ago. I'm just giving an example, and I stopped working with him 30 years ago when he retired. Anyway, so is a big thing. It makes a big difference, because if we are we are disempowering ourselves because we're seeing ourselves as fragile. I am fragile now, and I will be resilient then. And we look outside ourselves when it's an inside job. It's a feeling. It's an inside job. It's not an outside job. So we're looking in the wrong place. We are if we're looking in the wrong place, we'll never find it.
Yeah.
We're positioning ourselves as weak now and fragile later. So we're delaying it.
And it means we have to do a lot of work to get there. And if we don't know the work, we'll never get there.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. So it's the same for me and you said the word reveal. So I would say, yeah, self-worth. If we think that self-worth is built, then we're going to go down to the store and buy some bricks. But if we think self-worth is innate, then all we have to do is see it. And that's it. It's the job done. And we've saved the money on the bricks. We've saved the time of going to the store.
Yeah, that's a good way to think of it.
And we've also we're saving ourselves disappointment when the building of our self-esteem proves to be fruitless because we've gone outside it.
I think that's a good way to think of it. And, to rephrase the building of self-worth into maybe clearing away all of the cobwebs so that you can see it, so people do have work to do to get to it. But with your typical story that you say is like, you have to open the hand to see the diamond inside. And I think that might be a better way to phrase what I was trying to get at, where there are just these other things where if you grow up hearing, oh, you must be so lucky to have these parents, and it's a good thing that they saved you from foster care or whatever the situation was, that growing up with that, it is a hurdle, and it is something that folks have to get to a point to recognize that is not them and does not define them, and that they can sweep away the cobwebs and do the work to get down to the actual being able to see their self-worth.
Okay. So the cobwebs, I think some people have got cobwebs, and some people have got far more manure.
Yes. Yeah.
So the diamond metaphor actually came from a mentor of mine, a guy called Michael Neal. The diamond metaphor, he talks about the diamond in the horse shit, right?
Feels more right. Mm-hmm.
And the fact, and his story is, so this isn't adoption related, this is just human stuff, right? So we're born perfect. We go through some SH1T, as in events. We develop some SH1T feelings, and we have some shitty thoughts as well, and we lose sight of who we are. We lose sight of the diamond. We think that we are the horse doo-doo, and then we become concerned that people might see us that way too. They might smell us. They might smell the whiff that's coming off us. So we put nail varnish on the around the horse doo-doo to try and cover it up. And going back to your self-esteem, the definition of self-esteem, that would be the nail varnish on the horse doo-doo. Okay. Mm-hmm. So clearing the cobwebs, seeing through the picking the diamond out of the horse doo-doo. What are the cobwebs and what's the doo-doo? What does that mean to you? What are they in terms, in non-metaphorical terms?
Sure. I think for each adoptee, it's different. But I think it can, it can span it could span the gamut. But as far as from adoption, it is identity, abandonment. These are the typical things that we struggle with, right? Feeling unwanted, unloved, feeling less than or significantly different from our family. So we it depends, different situations, but we tend to look different, even if it's little things to big things from our family. And so when you look different, sometimes you feel different and you think it's super noticeable. And so I think there's a lot of that. I might be missing a few, but those are the ones that come to mind around adoption, that tend to be the horse manure or the fist that is closing in on and hiding our beautiful diamond of self-worth inside.
Yeah. So I heard something this morning on one of my audios that I was listening to, And I'm gonna summarize it in. Can I summarize it in 5? I'm going to summarize it in five words, because I like brevity and clarity. And I apologize if it's a little left brainy for you listeners, but I like precision. Okay, yeah. So it is forgetting we are all diamonds.
Yep.
Forgetting we are all, yeah, 5 words. So how do you think switching this to a kind of like an adoptive parent listening to this show, how do you think how we see self-worth as adoptive parents impacts our ability for us to help our kids see their self-worth?
It's critical. It is critical. And in fact, it depends on which agency, or if folks are not using an agency, but usually which home study agency you go through, but they often have quite a bit of training that you need to go through. And usually it focuses on that you need to do your own self-reflecting to help to clear out the muck so that you can see that. But I mean, yes, yes, it is very, very important for all parents, but especially adoptive parents, to instead of even saying like, to feel their, infinite value, to even just to feel good enough. I'm just going to simplify the, infinite value is amazing, but to feel good enough, to feel secure in yourself, to know, to have found your diamond, and to know that you're a diamond no matter how much horse manure gets piled on top. That's important because that is reflected. The children can see it. Children know when you're having even the smallest of bad days. And so you can imagine that if you are unaware of how brightly you shine inside, and you are trying to cover it up with nail varnish or whatever, they can see that. It is very transparent. Kids are not only resilient, they are brilliant. They can really they can read you better than you can read yourself, right? And so I think that it is important for all parents, but especially adoptive parents, to go through that self journey, to get there and to find your diamond, prior to placement.
Cool. So I was just scribbling something down there. It was an idea that came to me on a couple of months ago, in terms of that level. So you said not enough, and this was really something that happened to me. I was at a conference a couple of years ago, and I felt the relief of feeling enough. Now, I'm not actually talking about adoption stuff here. I'm talking about business stuff, really. Enough, as in, and financial as well. Financial. the relief of feeling enough. And it was like, I'm going to switch stories for a better metaphor. This was about 20 years ago, and I'd been really crazy busy at work, and I went on holiday, and it was an afternoon flight, and so the first thing that we did when we landed in Greece was drop our bags and go off to dinner. And we sat in this fantastic courtyard. Well, not fantastic, it was just a courtyard, and a taverna, like a downscale restaurant. I think the meal was like 10 quid, like $12 or something. It wasn't glitzy, it was just great, and a great vibe. And as I sat down, I felt the weight of the world lifting from my shoulders, right? Because of it being so crazy at work. And now I was on holiday for 2 weeks, and it was gone, right? So the relief of feeling enough, and I had that kind of, it's perhaps a less powerful metaphor, that, you know, sitting in the conference a couple of years ago, the relief of feeling enough, and it was a big relief. So that was enough. You said good enough, right? So I'm giving you three. That's the middle ground.
Yeah.
And that was huge for me, right? That was huge for me, because it was on the back of 20 years of not feeling enough.
Yep.
So I came up with this three phase thing a couple of months ago: that the agony of insecurity, the relief of feeling enough, and you're going to love this one, the ecstasy of infinity.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
So I wanted to tee that up, because it is that journey. Well, for me, that is my journey in 3 sentences. And talking about, you talking about doing the work, and how all the home studies and all the preparation says do your own work. We've got a great episode I always talk about on the show, called from a lady called Holly M. Petrie, she's a adoptive mom and runs an agency, and she came up with a title for her podcast, which was on the Thriving Adoptee show, which was Unpacking Our Own Baggage as adoptees. So that, to use your words, that is clearing the cobwebs.
Yep.
To use my words, it's scraping back the doo-doo. So it is about, and what I feel like is, that's what I've been doing for the last, and that's what I continue to do. And that's why it's continual learning. It's
exactly
with curiosity, not from a place of I'm wounded or I'm broken, but I'm just curious about how I can remember who I am more of the time.
I like that. I like that.
What do you make of all that? What's that? How's that landing? What's the question? Yeah. What do you make of that? Or what's the question going through the listeners' minds as they're listening to that? What are they going to be thinking? How?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing for me that resonates is that, curiosity for the rest of your life, in just making sure, that you're constantly doing the work to let your diamond shine and to see your diamond, and that it's, it's a journey, that things aren't just you've done something and it's done and now you're like, oh, I feel good enough. You didn't just sit there, feel like, I feel good enough, and then that's it, and you haven't done anything since. That's not the case. It's just continually learning and improving and working on ourselves. And that was the part that resonated with me from what you said. I mean, I think their question is definitely the how, and I don't know that I have that answer.
Well, the how for me is really simple, is find people that are further ahead of you on the journey.
That's great.
And read their books, listen to their podcasts, watch them on YouTube, buy their courses, but find somebody ahead of us, and a long way ahead of us, and also the thing for me is like some people that I first thought that's nuts. Now I think, right, yeah. So as it gets clearer, so do that's you see, I didn't mention therapy there, or coaches or mentors or whatever. I just mentioned audiobooks, and so that's another piece, isn't it? I mean, that's another piece. So the courses that I buy are led by a coach, and she does group courses, and it's a group, but she also there's some one-to-one stuff as well. So so I still get that a little bit of that one-to-one stuff, but yeah, I love the ecstasy of infinity, and we were like, why does this, just shifting to the adoptive parents listening, I'm struggling how I'm going to pitch this. I'm going to write the blurb for the summary, right? The more clearly we can see our own infinite value, the better we are going to be able to point our children to theirs. So this is a seeing thing. You said the revealing. That's revealing it. This is about revealing. It's not about strengthening. It's not about building. It's the innate one. Yeah, and like, this is my stuff. So I feel I've hijacked the show.
No, this has been such a great conversation. And I think that it does. I mean, I think it all goes together, right? So, if the adoptive parents are in a place where they are seeing their own diamond and feeling comfortable and like they are enough, and that they have their self-worth, to where it's shining, I think that really helps to set the stage for raising healthy kids. And again, when you know that you're good enough, and you are feeling that inner self-worth, I think it does take away from all these kind of extra things, extra narratives that have been put out there in the adoption community, where you're not saving someone else, right? Which I don't think most adoptive parents go out there necessarily thinking. Some do. But I think that when you realize this is a child that, like you said, we're all born perfect. I liked that phrase. And we're all born with self-worth. It's just whatever gets maybe kind of piled on top of our self-worth to where we need to reveal it. I think that that's important to think about, as parents to watch what gets piled on top of your child's self-worth. And if we are aware of it, how we can help them process to brush it away and reveal it, right? So I do think that it all comes back to, it comes full circle to where it does matter what, we're saying, what narrative we are giving around adoption to them, and being honest and open about what we know about their birth family, making sure that they are fully aware of their identity. If we're able to have a relationship with birth family, that we do, so that they can grow up knowing that, and not maybe
they're diamonds too.
They're diamonds too. That's exactly. And so I think like and also in showing your children as adoptive parents that you value the diamond in their birth family, that's also important, right? Because that's a part of their identity. So I do think it all comes full circle in our conversation. So I think that I think it's a great conversation for me as an adoptee, and all of us as adoptive parents.
And I'm just gonna do a metaphor mashup.
Sure.
You can't wound a diamond.
Yeah. Exactly. It's almost one to have printed out.
Yeah. Feeling wounded. I have felt wounded. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have felt wounded. But feeling wounded doesn't mean I have been wounded, because feelings aren't essential to us. They're not, feelings aren't who we are. We are not our feelings. Feelings come and go. So they're not essential to us. They are, feeling is one of the layers of crap around the diamond. It isn't the diamond.
I agree.
And the crap doesn't wound the diamond. It doesn't damage the diamond. It doesn't scratch the diamond. It doesn't.
Just blocks us from seeing the diamond.
It just blocks us from seeing the diamond. Yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully, listeners, you've got a feel for this. And if you're an adoptive parent, you really need to check out this lady's book.
Thank you. It's called Surrounded by Love, an Open Adoption Story.
Brilliant. Thanks, Allison. Thanks, listeners. We'll speak to you very soon.